What's up, Online Empire Academy? I am Joshua Woodward. I am the head of this podcast. And today we have, it's kind of an exciting twist on the series we're going through, if you guys want to call it that, about private labeling. I know a lot of people get stuck in this idea that private labeling has to be from Alibaba or China, or, they've got to go through all these loopholes. But I'm bringing on a guest today that I'm actually really excited about because she's taken the same idea of private labeling and made it her own. So Gloria Pearson is from MyBooklandia. It's her company. She started it. It's a fantastic idea, and I wanted to introduce her. So how are you today?
I am fabulous. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad that we're able to have you on. So Gloria owns a book company. I don't know. I'm not going to do it justice, but it's a company that she's built herself, and she sells on Etsy. She's an Etsy seller, and I know for our community, not a lot of people are selling on Etsy, but I want to kind of expand our view. I want to expand our view of what private labeling looks like, and I want to bring in the aspect that Etsy is just as much private labeling and becoming a brand as any other sales on Amazon, eBay, Shopify, any of the rest. So Gloria, I want to hear your story. Just walk us through how you got this started.
Okay. So I worked in high tech for a whole lot of years and suddenly found myself very unexpectedly without a job. And I'd been in that gray cubicle with those gray walls and no windows for a long time, and wanted to do something completely different and wanted to use the creative side of myself. So, kind of short, I love books. I mean, I really love books. I've been reading books my whole life. I read every day of my life. And so I had a whole boatload of books, boxes and boxes in my garage. And with free time, I thought, well, let's box them up and donate them. And then I found out that many of them end up in landfills. That was so totally contrary to everything I believe in. And I thought there's got to be a better way. So I launched MyBooklandia. And what I do is I take used, recycled books, and I make things out of them. I make clocks, I make lamps, I make planters, I make candle holders. I'm always working on something new. I'm working on banks right now, and I sell on Etsy. And my shop is MyBooklandia. All of my products are under that particular label, which is basically me. I make everything myself. I market it myself. I ship it myself. I do everything myself.
Wow, that's so cool. I love it. I mean, I was just talking to another guest about, when you're stuck in the situation, so many sellers are where they are today because they either got fired or, just a circumstance happened that took them out of their normal everyday life, and they were forced into another circumstance, which ended up being a very successful avenue for them. And I love that the ingenuity that you've put behind this, and that, you're like, I got books. Let's make something out of it. Now, what I want to know is that, I mean, that takes some processing of like, oh, I could make books into a planter. Like, explain that process. How did you get there?
Well, it was one of those things where you look around online and try to figure out what other people are doing. And I saw what other people were doing, and don't mean to cast aspersions on anyone else's work. I'm a stickler for details and making things work really well. I'm into functionality. So when I started looking at what other people are doing, I really wasn't happy with what I was seeing. I decided that I had to make things that were completely functional, worked really well, and that meant a whole lot of experimentation. I unfortunately added somewhat to that recycling, but I do recycle all the books that I use and cause trouble with. I branched off into Christmas ornaments just because of that. I use the torn pages in the books and I make Christmas ornaments out of them, which is a whole other story. But I will get an idea. So right now I'm working on a bank. So the bank will be a stack of books, however tall, I'm not sure how tall, and it has to have an opening in it. And it has to actually work. That means you have to have a bottom with a cap in the bottom, and you have to be able to open it and take your money out and put your money in. And I'm not going to go to a fabricator and have parts made, so I have to find other ways of doing that. So I spend time at Home Depot or Lowe's and look at all the PVC parts and figure out how I can use those. And then I use, pole saws and all kinds of things, and I'll work through it. And what I hope to have at the end is a really nicely made, very sturdy, well put together piece that will last forever. So with everything I make with books, I don't glue it together. I literally screw everything together. I
Huh.
made myself a large workbench that has all of these clamps and ways to mount books with templates and all kinds of stuff. And I've made everything to work just for the way that I do things. And if something doesn't work out, then I find some way to repurpose that. In fact, I do a lot of holes. So if you have a planter, you have book covers, and you have a lot of book cover holes, and you have a lot of circular pieces of paper. And I'm really trying to find a way to use all those circular discs. I don't know. I just started a group locally here for artists and crafters, and maybe somebody will be able to use them. I don't know. But I hate throwing things away. I'm really into recycle, archival quality glues. I'm really into making sure that whatever I do will actually not cause any harm, and make whatever I'm using turn out better for the environment than it was before.
Wow.
No worse.
I love it. It's so funny. My wife and I were looking through your Etsy page, and I said I totally win, because I was like, oh, she screws it together. Like, she's got to screw it together, because you can't, you have all the pages and they'd flap open, and I obviously you use glue too, so I guess she wins a little bit. But
Glue the covers, top and
yeah.
bottom line. But other than that, pretty much everything is screwed together. Even they're lined with plastic. Plus, there's a drip tray, and it goes on and on. But even with those, all those books are screwed together, and then the liner is actually stapled in before I glue everything in. So it's really, even if you were to do something, unlikely, but even if you were to somehow unfasten the cover, you could glue it back on, because everything, the integrity would remain okay.
I love it. I love it. Now, what I want to know is, obviously it's a labor intensive thing, and you've got to spend some time going through and finding books, and I'd love to know, I'll ask that question in a second, where you find all the books, but it's a labor intensive thing. Would you encourage other people to go out and do this kind of business?
If you want to get rich, no. I mean, plain and simple. It's unlikely that I will. In fact, I think you can put money on the fact I will not become a millionaire. When I originally started making things, it was like, well, what is it that you think you can actually, how much money can you make to support yourself? So fortunately, I'm not destitute. I'm not homeless. I'm not in any situation. I worked a lot of years, so I do have, resources to fall back on. But I'm not rich by any standard of the imagination. So my goal is to pay for my expenses, my general expenses, food, groceries, utilities, whatever incidentals I come up with, and to not have to actually take any money out of my savings. So that's my goal. In the last couple of months, I've actually achieved that goal. It's not something, well, holidays, right? You make a lot of money on holidays. And I'm sure that if I had enough business, I could somehow wrap my head around getting someone in to help doing things like drilling holes through the books. It's tedious, it's time consuming, it's not really fun, but it's part of the process. So in theory, I could end up hiring people to increase my productivity products. I think the more difficult thing for someone who makes things one at a time is, how do you market everything that you make and somehow streamline that process? Because I have to list, photograph, write the description, create the keywords, do the whole SEO rigmarole. I have to do all of that for every single item. And so I'm trying to figure out how I can create, not duplicates, because nothing is ever an absolute duplicate, but to create blue, red, green, brown. You choose it by color, and I don't have to list every single one individually. And that will be my next step when I actually start ramping it more. And it's winter, so no craft fairs, no places you have to go. I can work from home, sell online without any of that outside activity. So I'll probably end up doing that before summer starts. That should be in place.
I love it. I love it. And I know Amazon is they're working on their own section of a handmade area just for their business. And I know that most of our sellers, most of the people listening right now are selling on Amazon and eBay. And there's a lot of people out there who are already crafters and who already love doing this stuff. And this is why I wanted to bring you on, because there's so much imagination that we have here that we don't release. And I think that you've got something here that really we could tap into and end up making money. I totally agree. You've got to have other avenues that you have income that subsidize your income. But for the people who are wanting to private label, there's some amazing opportunity here and some really exciting opportunity, especially when you start getting into Etsy. And yeah, I love it. Where do you get the books though? This is my big question, because I mean, obviously you've got to create a lot. So
Yeah.
where are you getting all these books?
Well,
Because they're
let me
beautiful.
back up one sec though, because I actually do have a store on Amazon, but I haven't spent much time or energy on it. I only have a couple of things listed there.
Okay.
And there's a reason for that. And Amazon was created as a retailer's kind of market, not as a handmade kind of market. So because you have so much competition in the handmade space and not a lot of understanding as to how much time and energy it takes. So for example, you can send something overseas, pay people much less than US standard minimum wage, and create a product so that your product costs X, and if you were to hand make it in the United States, it would cost double X or whatever. And because of that, Amazon can build a lot of markup into that. Well, Etsy's markup is not nearly as high as that. So I don't have to sacrifice so much of my, my time and energy, and my pricing can be much more reasonable. Looking at Amazon pricing, I'd have to bump everything up like 20 to 30% to make the same kind of money that I can make on Etsy. So others may find that to be somewhat different, but that is kind of been my experience. One of these days, I may end up doing more on Amazon, but I've actually gone kind of to Amazon and back, and I'm an Amazon fanatic. I buy everything on Amazon. I live in a rural area. It's lovely not to have to go and shop for something when I can actually have it delivered to my house. Yay. But when it comes to the handmade stuff, there's not that much. It's hard enough to get the value for what you put into it as it is. So that's just my 2 cents on that. But where you get the books, that's the most fun of the whole process, because I love books. I go to used bookstores. I do a lot of time in thrift stores. I mean, literally, I will go to a particular thrift store that's in my area once a week at least, and pick up book titles that I know are popular, book covers that look interesting. And lately, I've started looking at the Pantone colors. I don't know if you're familiar. I'm not a fashionista by any stretch of the imagination. So the idea of Pantone colors and those color schemes and how people use them as decorators is relatively new to me. So I've started looking at Pantone colors as a way to designing for color as opposed to title or book appearance. And I now go down the shelves at the bookstore and I stand and kind of look over the edges to see what all inside the book jacket is, what all those colors are, and then pull them out. People look at me like I'm crazy because I don't even care about anything about it. And I have found some of the most amazing books. I found one last week, It's Now O'Clock, that has a beautiful painting. It's a still life of peaches and grapes. It's on the cover. It's just amazing. So It's Now O'Clock. I found another one that was covered with shoes for people who love shoes, and I know there are some out there. And that's Now O'Clock. But I look at things for color as much now as I did for title and actually the book outer design.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, one of the things that totally the inner child in me kind of came up was you did graphic novels, and I was like, oh man, I was a total nerd as a kid. Like I loved superheroes. Like that was my thing. And well, that and Star Wars. And so
Yeah.
like when I saw that you have a Spider-Man obviously above your
Yeah.
head, but that for me was like, oh, that's so cool. Like you're really niching in and finding those areas and exposing those areas. We talk about this all the time of there's a group of people who love X, Y, or Z, and they are not being marketed to. And I love that you're doing that. I love that you're like, oh yeah, Spider-Man, that's awesome. Bam, right there, Spider-Man. I love that.
Well, it's really fun, and it's been an adventure for me because I found things that I didn't know existed. So I love books. I love classical fiction. I love Jane Austen. You know, there are graphic novels for Jane Austen lovers. Pride and
Really?
Prejudice is a graphic novel. I mean,
Huh.
who would know that? I didn't know that beforehand. Who knew that Walking Dead had a graphic novel? And the covers are, if you like Walking Dead, if you don't, not so much. But the covers are amazing because they're brilliant. They're like white, black, and some other primary color. They're really cool to look at. And it's just kind of amazing. People don't look at the covers of their books. If you love to read, you get the dust jacket. You read the whatever's on the back of the cover to find out if you like it or not, or you like the author. And some people never realize if they take the jacket off, there's something amazing inside.
Uh,
And it's very artistic. There's I've got a clock in my shop right now. It's the Sherlockian. And it's a yellow cover, not very interesting. I think it's yellow and white is what the dust jacket is. If you open it up and take the dust jacket off, underneath is black with a Sherlock Holmes silhouette, and it's all in bright red. And who would have
uh,
thought? And people may never ever see it. So I now, in fact, probably up on the top of this bookshelf here, there's probably 5 copies of the Sherlockian because I ran.
looks like we're having a little technical difficulty.
Yeah, we may be. I think we're
Okay.
back though. I hear you okay.
Yeah. No, I hear you now too. Okay. Yeah. It looks like it's working now. Okay, we're back on. You were saying something about the Sherlockian that you have several copies.
Yes, yeah, that was pretty much it.
Okay, I love it. I love it. Again, something just to kind of pull from this and to learn from it for the community is that like obviously there's huge opportunities in the handmade niche. And if you guys are already running teams, this may be something that you could branch out. I mean, if you're already going to thrift stores, you might as well branch out and start looking into other avenues of handmade goods and areas that you can make money off of. I mean, so many of the people we're talking to have teams or have somebody they're working with and helping ship or helping do those things. Add this to your eBay business. Add an Etsy account to your overall business and make some money off of some of the handmade stuff, or partner with somebody who's already making handmade stuff. Go to one of the craft fairs in your city and talk with somebody. See if you can help them get that product online. There's so many opportunities for this, and that's why I love it. I love the handmade area and the handmade niche because people really love that. People love the handmade that somebody took the time to make this. And I love, Gloria, that you're out there making these books. I mean, you guys go check it out. If you go to the onlineempireacademy.com/booklandia, just like Portlandia, but with book, you can find it and you'll be able to see all of what she's doing and everything she's up to. But really, just an amazing product, amazing idea. What are some of the do's and don'ts of getting into Etsy?
Well, be prepared. One of the things about Etsy is it works like anything else. In order to get traffic to your site, people that don't know you, you actually have to have other traffic to your site, which is one of those things which comes first, the chicken or the egg. But every time somebody goes to your site, looks at what it is, one of your products, likes one of your products, decides to follow you, adds your stuff to a treasury, you end up getting more hits because that becomes visible on the Etsy homepage. So creating traffic generates traffic. It's one of those, as I said, chicken and egg. But you can't just open up an online shop and expect people to come. There's, if you're really fabulous at keywords, you might end up managing it somehow or other. But by and large, you have to work very hard at getting it out there. And that means SEO, so search engine optimization, is critical. Your photos, which frankly, my photos could use some improvement. A lot of people have like little small things, and some of my things are kind of big. It's hard to photograph them, and I'm working on that, and it's an ongoing process to get it great. And your descriptions have to be really good. But I found, well, today, in fact, I listed a lamp, and I generally list 1 to 2 items a day. I'll make them, I'll kind of have them stored, or I'll have them in draft form on Etsy. And once I list them on Etsy, then I put them on my Facebook page. Then I share them with numerous groups that allow me to do that. And from that, I generate additional traffic, which in turn generates additional traffic, which in turn hopefully generates sales. Search engine optimization, there's just, you make some changes, nothing is happening, you make some changes, and all of a sudden you have 70 hits in a day.
Huh.
It's one of those things that I know people talk about it ad nauseum, and you just get bored in your eye, you want to fall asleep. But it doesn't matter. You have to do it. You have to keep working on it. Those search keywords change all the time, so you have to look at it all the time. The lamp I just listed today, I had a list of keywords for my previous lamp. Almost all of those were no longer the best keywords to use. So I had to go through and look through and find, I use Marmalade for that. And I had to go look through that and find, yeah, Marmalade is for Etsy. So you can enter your search term in Marmalade. There's both a paid version and a free version of it. And it will come up with how many, like, for example, how many hits per keyword there are in a given period of time.
Huh.
Really
That's
helpful,
awesome.
right? Yeah, you enter in 10 different keywords and you can decide which ones are the most important to include in your listing. So I did that this morning, put it out there, and I've already had hits on that particular lamp because I changed the keywords. So it's something that you think everything's perfect, and then you realize, oh, I listed something 2 months ago. You better go back and look at your keywords and description, because maybe 2 months ago, all those keywords are no longer the most valid ones to use.
Wow, that's so cool. And I love that you obviously have this background of understanding how the internet works. So I think that helps, and being able to, I mean, so many people don't think. It's so funny. I started an Etsy business a while back, and it just tanked. I never sold anything. And part of that was I didn't put enough time into it. But secondly is I was in a really competitive niche. I was finding a lot of estate pipes, which are old tobacco pipes. Found out I could sell really well on eBay, and I was like, oh, I might as well try it on Etsy. Well, come to find out, it's a lot harder to sell on Etsy than I originally anticipated, because of exactly what you're talking about, of search optimization and making sure that your keywords are right, and making sure that you are actually fitting. Because I started using the keywords from eBay, and listing the same keywords on Etsy doesn't work.
Yeah.
People aren't looking for the same things, and so just learning that process can feel intimidating at times, but ultimately it's what pays off. And especially if you can backlink to other sites and other things, it ends up building for you. And yeah, I love that. But I love that you have the knowledge and you've put it into your business. And yeah, will you share that site one more time?
Yes, it's Marmalade, marmalade.com. And there are, the really great thing about Etsy is, because we're all handmade people by and large, everybody wants to be helpful, which kind of goes with the handmade idea, right? And so there are a ton of different places that you can go, particularly on Facebook, and you can ask questions, you can share your ideas, you can go, I tried this and it didn't work, can somebody take a look at this? And people will actually do it. And it's very, very helpful. Also, like, few days ago, somebody asked me, does anybody have any great Valentine's gifts for guys? And I thought, well, you know what? My book clocks sell really well. So I posted it. Of course, there were 75 other people that posted, but the person writing the blog took the time to look through everybody's and actually mention mine on her blog, which is great. That's the kind of community that it is. It's not so much yeah, we all want to make money. Yeah, we all, want to do really well, but it's not so much the dog-eat-dog world that you might see someplace else, because I'm just as happy if somebody does as well as I do. I don't have a problem with that. If you're doing really much better, please tell me how to make my shop better. And if you're not doing so well, then you know what? I'd be really happy to help you figure out how to do better. So it's kind of a different environment that you might find in other places, because I think it's the handmade background that does it.
Absolutely. I mean, you're so personal with your products, and so if you can help somebody, I mean, it's not, and even with competition, it's like, if you guys are growing each other and building each other, you share sales. It only ends up helping both of you. So I think that's great.
Yeah, if more people knew about book stuff, about home decor made out of books, then if there was a burgeoning market on Etsy, you know what? My sales would go up too.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on. I feel like there's so much knowledge and so much stuff that I took some notes and I'm going to dig into, because I mean, I'd love to start selling on Etsy again and actually do something with it. So I appreciate the knowledge. And you guys, if you're wanting to know more about her and her shop, absolutely awesome. Go to the onlineempireacademy.com/Booklandia. And that's where you can find all about her and what she's been up to and the amazing products you create. I think it's so fun. So thank you for being on.
Thank you. It's been great.
Absolutely. Well, Empire, if you want to find out more about us and everything we're doing, go to the onlineempireacademy.com and you can find out everything there, also on Facebook and on YouTube and iTunes and all the other podcast platforms. We're so excited that you guys joined us for this one. Until next time, Empire, have a fantastic day.
Thanks.